Hello, everyone. I am your podcast chair, Sneha Sharma, and welcome to the District Podcast for District 101, Destination 101. And I couldn't be more excited to kick off this interviewing season because today we have someone truly extraordinary. And I know that the word special gets thrown around a lot, but our guest today has truly earned in it in every possible way. We have with us none other than Solarzar, a man of many talents and achievements. Let me tell you a little bit more about him. So Solarzar has, for 21 years, he has served with honor in the U.S. Marine Corps. And after that, he went on to become a consultant and trainer for the Department of Defense, focusing on benefits and policy. But that's not all. He's also an award-winning Toastmaster, holding the highest educational level we have, the coveted DTM. And as if that weren't impressive enough, he's also a magician. Yes, Solarzar is a member of the Society of American Magicians and the International Brotherhood of Magicians. With a resume like that, you can see why I'm so thrilled to have him here. So without further ado, let's dive into this fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Solarzar, for joining us. Uh, with such an incredible and diverse background, from the Marine Corps to Toastmasters to being a magician, there's so much to unpack. Let's start with this. If you have to choose one defining moment in your entire life journey that shaped who you are today, what would that be? I know it's very difficult, but that one defining moment, what would that be?
But unfortunately, Sneha, I'd have to take two of them and just to explain. So one was when I was kicked out of the house at 16. I was living on the streets for over 2 years. And the second is going through the Marine Corps and going through the enlisted ranks to the officer ranks before retiring. Excuse me. Both of those defined within me characteristics and character in inner strengths that you don't know you have till you have to draw on them. So I think that both of those events were very critical to defining who I am today.
Why do you think so? I mean, what happened that it became the defining moment of your life? Yeah.
Excuse me 1 minute.
Yeah, please take your time.
Well, at 16, my father and I got into a disagreement about a haircut. Turned into an argument, it turned into a physical fight. As a result, I was out of the house during a snowstorm in the middle of February in New York. I had an overcoat, 16 cents, and a carry bag. And I had to now rely on myself. I had no place to call home. I had no place to go. I had no money. I had no way to make my way except to rely on me. So you come to find those characteristics or the strength of character within you that allows you to believe in yourself first and foremost and to find creative ways to keep going forward. Several years later, my father and I reconciled, and then I returned home, and then I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And in the Marine Corps, I had the opportunity, going from enlisted to officer directly, not right away, but over the portion of my career. And that also required me to call on strengths within myself. I had to go from one frame of thinking to another frame of thinking and determine who I was as a person. They're very defining differences within those, the enlisted corps and the officer corps and the services. So I had to define who I was. Once again, drawing on those characteristics or character inside me that gave me strength and belief in myself and that I can do it even when it always seemed to be a challenge. So I feel that those two events helped define within me that I'm capable of doing what I choose to do as long as I choose to do it. Then later on, it became an issue of how do I choose to do it? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does. The strength of character is something that became your defining moment after you were independent. Yeah, I get that. So how did you decide to be a magician or join magic? Why was that decision made?
When I was in kindergarten, I went to a birthday party held by Ginger Schwartz, and she had all of us there, and there was a magician, and he called on me to help or do something with him, and it really just opened my eyes. And of course, the other thing is when I left the party, Ginger Schwartz kissed me on the cheek. So that was my first kiss. So, but we also had a program in New York called Wonderama, and it was run by a magician, Bob McAllister. And so they always had these magicians coming on every Sunday, and they would perform. And I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated by the aspect of being able to do something that seemed physically impossible. And so that's what got me interested in being a magician. And I started to become a magician when I got my library card. And when I got my library card in the Dewey Decimal System 793.2 was where all the magic books were in the library. And I couldn't believe it. They had the books right there. Anybody could take them out. And so I started practicing magic, and I was just fascinated with it and interested in it. And I was fortunate enough to have a mentor, a local mentor, who took me under his wing.
So the Marine Corps experience and the magic practice, did you do both hand in hand, or you gave up magic just to be in the corps?
After a few years in the Marine Corps, I did stop doing magic. When I first went in, I was doing magic. They had me doing magic at different events. They took me to orphanages. They did different things. But I became more focused on being a good Marine, and I didn't want to detract from that. I probably could have done both, but I put the magic aside and began to focus on my Marine Corps skills, training, and education.
Wow,
And so it really wasn't until I retired in 94 that I came back to my magic very slowly.
that's that's wonderful. Solazar, you need to captivate the audience as a magician. So how has that experience changed your approach to, or influenced your approach to public speaking and engaging your audience at Toastmasters?
Well, one of the things, and I've also learned this from my magical mentors, I've gone through a lot of training over the last 30 years. And one of the things that I've learned is that I believe that there's a concept that for me, magic is real. Therefore, I want to create a perception that the audience members can believe that magic can be real in their life. So when you carry that over to giving a presentation, it's the same type of thing. I want to create a perception that I can plant a seed that they may germinate later and grow into something. So all I really want to do is I want to engage them. I do want to entertain them at all times. I don't believe there's a entertaining speech that's just about entertainment. I believe all of our speaking should be entertaining to keep the audience engaged. And then I believe we should plant a seed, whatever it is. We don't have to convince them. We don't have to force them. We just plant a seed. That's how I approach my speaking. And based on a lot of my other training with my magical mentors, I write every speech. I don't memorize every speech, but I write every speech to get the best words for what I'm trying to say.
So you mean to say that it's not just the message, it's also the entertainment factor that really matters in your speech.
Yes, yes, everybody, we could give the best speech in the world. But if we're not really engaging the audience, we're not creating that connection. So we talk about simple things in Toastmasters, like, come up with a catchy opening, and get their attention, or have them raise their hand or something like that. But that's not really getting them to be working with you in the speech. So you have to draw them in. One of the things we just had at one of our club's professional speakers, so I went through this issue with the individual who's an accredited speaker talking about stories. About stories can be episodic throughout our presentation. So for instance, I could start you with page 1 of my story, then talk a little bit about the topic and come to page 2. And I could keep bringing you along. So what I'm really doing is just like a mystery story or just like any other story, I'm revealing different little things as we go along instead of just dumping information. And what will you remember at the end? You're going to remember that story, which now has all the components that I wanted you to know. So that's what I believe speaking is. Speaking is about Patricia Fripp, first female president of the National Speakers Association, Haya and executive coach always says we speak to be heard and understood. Now, to be heard, it means we have to be saying words that they can hear. So I can't talk from the Oxford English Dictionary to an audience that doesn't know the Oxford English Dictionary. Of course, I don't know it. I'm not trying to pretend I do. But I can't use words that aren't going to resonate with them. But the second thing is, I have to say it in ways that they can understand and decide for themselves what they want to take in and retain. And I believe that that's our job as a speaker. Not to
And
deviate,
also,
but I'm going to jump a little bit because even as a
thank you.
trainer, when we talk about adult learning theory, we talk about adults learn best when they decide the information is something they want to know. As speakers, we have to let them feel. We have to try to get them to feel they want to know what we're sharing.
That's a beautiful message. And that also brings me to one more question I had in mind, Solarzar. Um, Many people consider theatrics an unnecessary element in Toastmasters. We have seen many speakers who use a lot of theatrics in their presentation. How do you think that helps? And how much is needed?
I don't believe in theatrics. I believe in one, find your authentic voice and find your best storytelling voice. So here's what I mean by that. It's like if I tell you a story as if I'm reading to a 3-year-old at night to get them to go to sleep, you'll feel that I'm being condescending. But if I think about how I tell that story and I change voices, I change intonation, I maybe change movement, I just change little things, not big things, to try to keep your interest through the story to help you follow it. I believe in that. But I am absolutely against theatrics because theatrics belong on a stage in a play. You know, I mean, I'll shuffle that a little bit by saying there are some speakers like Connie Podesta who does wonderful, wonderful role plays with her audience members. Now, in the role play, you're acting, but that's not how she's telling her full message. She's acting in that part, and that makes perfect sense. But if I'm just sharing a story, I want to share it in a way that's interesting to listen to and not use excessive words that you start saying, I wonder when he's going to be done.
I get that. Yeah. So Solazar, you are also a DTM, a Distinguished Toastmaster. Now, for many of us, DTM is a checkbox. We want to get it done. It's a highest degree educational milestone in Toastmasters. But in your experience, what does being a DTM truly signify, and how has it shaped your personality or helped you achieve goals beyond Toastmasters community?
Well, that's a wonderful question, Sneha, as are all the questions you've asked. But I'm too old. I have two DTMs. They're the old way. They're not under pathways, so they're before pathways. Here's what I feel that I've learned from that, especially my first DTM. My first DTM, I am just in my work for Department of Defense, I'm known as a subject matter expert. I do data research and analysis and identity research and policy. And so I dig into things. So when I first joined Toastmasters, I was digging into things. I read everything I could get my hands on. I even got my DTM by accident. What I mean by that, I was just doing things. I wasn't saying, oh, here's what I need to do to become a DTM. I was just doing things. What's the next thing I could do? Let me try that. Oh, this looks interesting. Let me try that. As a result of that, I learned a great deal by going through the experience of not trying to be a DTM, but trying to do the things that led to me being a DTM, all unconsciously in my part because I knew I had to do those things, but I wasn't trying to get to that outcome. And suddenly I looked and I said, oh my God, if I do a high performance leadership project, I'll be a DTM. And my DTM that's when they first came out with the high performance leadership project. And my first DTM was delayed by 1 year because I thought your high performance leadership project had to be successful. So I took 2 years working the project before I was told, no, it doesn't have to be successful. And I was able to submit it and get approval for my TTM. So, but for me, it was the learning of the experience. We're supposed to, it's an educational program we're in. We're supposed to be learning, being informed, being knowledgeable, and not just making things up as we go along. And that was the best part of the experience for me, is all that knowledge I gained. And I love that. I still pursue that today. Does that answer
But
your
how,
question? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yes, yes, it does. But one more thing, how did it help you beyond this
Ah,
Toastmaster community?
you're right. You
Yeah,
did ask me that.
yeah.
One of the things I liked, especially in the earlier program, is that we used to get a competent leadership and a competent communicator. And I used to always make the joke, nowhere else in life can you be told you're competent. But when I got my DTM, because of, as I told you, how I went through it, I really felt like I had accomplished something because of the journey, not because of the DTM. I really felt like I earned this. I learned, and I feel that I'm a much better Toastmaster because of it. So I've applied that in everything that I've done in my own professional speaking, my own performing, even some of the consultant work that I've done in the training that I do. I'm able to leverage the DTM just like 10 years from now you're going to be able to leverage your PhD just by being a PhD versus what you know you gained getting there. It suddenly becomes it's the title that matters to some people more than what you gained getting there. But I feel the value of having gotten that. So it's just become a credibility issue to the outside world.
True, true.
Does
That
does
makes
that
sense. Yeah.
does that help
It
answer
does.
that?
Yes, yes, it does. It does. So, Solazar, coming back to your US Marine Corps experience, it must have taught you how to communicate under pressure, teamwork, adaptability. Now, how can Toastmasters, incorporate these lessons regardless of their background? How can they apply these lessons to excel in their leadership and public speaking journeys?
Well, one thing I can't speak for the other services in the US, but I can speak for the Marine Corps. One of the things that the Marine Corps stresses heavily is everything is about teams. And they teach that leadership is about the teacher to the student. So today, the teacher teaches the student. Tomorrow, the student teaches the teacher. It's the idea of the continuation of the legacy, and you're passing on the knowledge. So everything we do in the Marine Corps is based on working within a team structure so that the members all have individual roles, but the members are all informed. So it's never a case of just because this is your job, you don't know what this person is doing. We did that all the time. It was a requirement in terms of how we were expected to lead and function. So I really appreciated knowing that. In terms of communication, there's an issue that I do have within Toastmasters that I feel, from my perspective, is not always well applied. And here's what I mean by that. In the Marine Corps, we would all get together. Here's the commanding officer. He's got all of his officers together. He wants to know what everybody thinks about what we're going to do. But at the end of that discussion, when everybody passes their information to him and gives their reason, he or she makes the decision of how we're going to go forward. At that point in time, discussion stops. You know, he or she is the one that has the authority to make that decision, just like our district director, Raji. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, Raji is the district director. Like it, don't like her decision, doesn't matter. Raji will listen. But at the end of the day, who's responsible for the decisions going forward? Raji. And to me, that's when discussion stops. She'll ask opinions, we do something. We're not always good about that in Toastmasters, and I see it mostly in clubs. For instance, I was the last president. Now the new president comes in. You come in as the new president. I don't like what you're doing. So I'm in the meeting telling people, well, you know what you should be doing, Sneha? Okay, one, I'm being disrespectful. Two, I'm not letting you have your leadership and learning experience. Three, I'm not mentoring you at all by doing this. I'm just being disruptive. And I forget it is not my role to tell you what to do. You have the authority and the responsibility. I do think that's one area where we're not at our best in all cases in Toastmasters.
Very true. Many times, even I've seen those ego clashes,
Yeah.
going on among the leaderships. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mean to say that it's the inclusivity that a leader should consider, asking opinions, but ultimately taking the charge and being the captain of the ship? This is one lesson that you're
Yes,
asking. Yeah.
I believe there's a difference between consensus and leadership. And they always say we should have consensus leadership. Well, consensus means we consider the minority opinion and we try to adjust for it. I don't believe that that's always appropriate. I think most often, just because I want to paint the walls red doesn't mean we should, well, Solarzar, we'll let you paint that wall red. If that's not the direction that the person with the authority and the leadership wants to go, then we shouldn't have to go there. We can discuss it, we can acknowledge it, we can affirm it, but we need to move forward. So I think often we use in Toastmasters consensus to say, oh, well, so and so wanted this, and so wanted this, and so wanted this. And we end up with this hodgepodge of a dish that doesn't always have coherence. We need to
True.
learn a little, in my opinion. It's terrible to even say this because it almost goes against what it is. We need to have a little more humility of not my place. It may be my place to suggest to you, but it's not my place to tell you.
It's true. So ultimately, we got to respect the leader who is in that position and move forward. Yeah.
Yes, in all cases. In the military, you couldn't function without that. But sometimes people think everything is very directive in the military. I just wanted to point out, wasn't that way in the Marine Corps. There are cases, yes, but it's not that way most of the time.
All right. So, your career, Solarzar, spans the military, consultancy, and even the performing arts. How do you bring the insights from these varied experiences into your speeches and especially mentorship within the Toastmasters community?
Well, the primary thing that I believe that I've learned over time is that we we have to be listeners. We often talk about it in Toastmasters. Oh, we listen. I heard this. Listen to my evaluation. But do we really listen? So if you're mentoring someone, it's not about you telling them anything. It's about you listening so you can hear what they need, what they're looking for, what's to their best advantage, and you can offer whatever guidance is necessary. In consulting, just like if you work with a client, any of us who work with clients, it's not about telling the client what they're going to get. It's about listening to what the client wants, determining where their needs are from their wants, and helping to guide them to a solution that will best serve their business or their other need. It's all about listening. The Toastmaster motto used to be better listening, better thinking, better speaking. I love that motto because it's very illustrative of what we want to think. We want to hear what people are saying. When we take in new information, we're able to think with that new information that we didn't have before. And then when we speak, we're more informed than when we started.
Wow. So you're talking about listening from both the mentor and the mentee point of view, right?
The, the mentee is going to be the mentee. I would never say to a mentee, you're not listening to me.
Mhm.
But I absolutely must listen to what the mentee is suggesting, asking, or discussing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Solarzar. I had a very enlightening conversation because considering this is my first experience as a podcaster and I've had you as a guest. So I learned a lot. I also noted down a few points, for example, how entertainment in a speech is very important just from your performing arts experience. And there's a unique magic in each one of us. That simply stood out to me. and revealing information in your speeches layer by layer. And you speak to be heard and to be understood. And leadership is a continuation of legacy. So some points I noted down from your this conversation we had.
I believe that leaders are like gardeners. So what we do is we create an environment for other people to grow. We invest in them like investing in the soil to enrich it. And then we plant the seeds. And then we let it go. If we've done those things, then they will grow, an organization will grow, and everyone will actually come out ahead.
Wow. I'm sure our listeners are leaving with some very, very valuable takeaways that they can apply to their own, personal growth journeys. So thank you so much, Solarzar, once again for that insight and for that wisdom. And to all our listeners, keep pushing forward, and we'll see you soon in the next episode. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading in your own unique way. Thank you so much.